In this video tutorial, we're going to be talking about something that is very, very important for the 11 plus exam, particularly the English reading paper, and that is being able to use context to define vocabulary. So what does it I mean by using context to define vocabulary? Okay, so what you need to be able to do is to figure out the meanings of words based only on context. Okay, so when we use the word vocabulary, we're just talking about words, so we're figuring out the definitions of vocabulary, the definitions of words based on context. What do I mean by context? I mean the stuff around the word, what's going on in the story, what's happening in the background that will give meaning to our vocabulary. Okay, so this is a very important skill. We need to be able to figure out a word's definition, a word's meaning, by reading the story and reading around those words. So take a look at this example on the screen. We have a short passage of writing. I'm going to read it to you, and then we're going to talk about how we might define those bold words that you can see on the screen. Okay, so let's read it first. The garden had once been beautiful, but now it looked overgrown and neglected. Weeds twisted around the broken fence, and the path had become almost invisible beneath the thick grass. In the centre stood a ramshackle shed, its roof sagging and its door hanging loosely from one hinge. Despite its condition, there was something strangely tranquil about the place. The gentle rustling of leaves and the soft hum of insects created a peaceful atmosphere, making it feel like a quiet escape from the busy world outside. Okay, so now let's take a look at a question based on the text that we've just read. And the question is, which of the following is the closest in meaning to ramshackle? Now, ramshackle is quite an unusual word. If you already know what the word means, then answering this question obviously becomes much easier than someone who has never encountered this word before. But we do not have to worry if we do not know what this word means, because we can ascertain its meaning by looking at the context of the text that we just read. Okay, so let's find ramshackle in the text. It's right here. We're going to figure out its meaning based on the context. Now what I do is I only read the sentence that the word is in. So for example, ramshackle is in the sentence which begins here and it ends here. If I do need to read more of the text, if there isn't enough context in that one sentence alone, then I will. But for now, I'm going to read just that sentence, okay? So it says, in the centre stood a ramshackle shed, its roof sagging, and its door hanging loosely from one hinge. So the context is, firstly, that it's describing a shed, okay? It's describing a shed. But we know some other things about the shed, don't we? We also know that the shed has a roof which is sagging, so a roof that's maybe collapsing or half collapsed, and the door is hanging loosely from one hinge. So the door is also collapsing. Okay, so this word ramshackle describes a shed that is not in great condition at all. And if we take a look at the options, we can choose from strong and well built, well, we know it can't be that one based on the context. Bright and colourful. I mean, maybe it's bright and colourful. It might be falling apart, but still, it could be bright and colourful, couldn't it? So we'll leave that for now until we get to C and we see that it says old and falling apart, which is a direct description of the shed. So we know that that must be the answer. And now we can rule out B, because we might assume it's bright and colourful, but we're not told directly, whereas we are told that the shed is falling apart, aren't we? So C makes a much better definition. Let's just look at D to make sure. D says large and spacious. There is nothing in that text which suggests it's large or spacious. Okay, so we have our answer. Our answer is C. Okay, let's take a look at the next question. Which of the following is closest in meaning to tranquil? Well, we're just going to do the same thing again. We're going to read the sentence that tranquil is in. This one right here, so let's read it. It says, despite its condition, there was something strangely tranquil about the place. Okay, so in order to figure out what tranquil means, I think it's very important to take a look at this word, despite. Now, despite means even though. So even though it's condition, which we know is overgrown and neglected if we're talking about the garden itself, and even if we're talking about the shed, it's ramshackle, which we know the meaning of now, the roof is sagging, the door is hanging loosely. So we've got lots and lots of negative adjectives, negative phrases to describe the scene of the story. Okay, so now when we go back to that sentence, it says even though it's awful, it's poor condition, it's ramshackle condition, there was something strangely tranquil about the place. Now, tranquil must be a positive word, a positive adjective in this context, because despite means even though. So what it's saying is, even though it's in bad condition, there is something more pleasant about this place, because we're contrasting two ideas. That's what despite means, okay? So we're looking for a more positive adjective or a more positive phrase. So let's take a look at the options. We've got noisy and busy. Well, that doesn't suggest a contrast, does it? Dark and frightening relates more to ramshackle and overgrown and neglect. So we know it can't be that one. Then we've got the option calm and peaceful, which in this context is definitely contrasting to the current scene, isn't it? Calm and peaceful is completely opposite to neglected and overgrown and ramshackle. So it looks like we found our answer, but let's take a look at option D, cold and uncomfortable. Again, cold and uncomfortable is kind of in keeping with the story, isn't it? Because the story so far is describing a nightmarish situation, an awful situation, where there are lots and lots going on and all quite negative. Okay, so there's no contrast there, which means our answer must be C. Okay, so all I've done in this video tutorial so far is read some texts and talk about or ascertain or define vocabulary based on the context of the text that I've read. Okay, that's all I've done. Okay, I didn't need to know previously what ramshackle meant. I did not need to know what tranquil meant. Now, obviously, it's a good idea to have a great vocabulary, okay? It would be amazing if we already knew what those words meant. However, we do need to learn how to use context to define words, because it's pretty much a guarantee that in the 11 plus exam, you are going to come across words that you've never heard before. So take a look at the worksheet attached to this video in the description. You will find that there's a text with some tricky words in. See if you can figure out the meanings of those words based on the context of the story.